Hello, my friends. That dusty stoneware jug shoved behind a furnace pipe in your basement could be worth more than the shelves it has been sitting on for 30 years. The one somebody uses as a doorstop, the one your grandmother kept in the cellar, the one with a blue bird, a brown shoulder, or a faded name you never bothered to read. Old American stoneware is not just kitchen junk. It is a real collecting field, and the right maker, decoration, form, condition, and rarity can push a piece from $50 into the thousands, tens of thousands, or in exceptional cases, far beyond that. Today, we are counting down 10 specific kinds of old stoneware jugs and crocks that still turn up in basements, barns, garages, attics, and family estates. And I will show you what to look for before you ever think about selling one. Before refrigerators, these vessels held whiskey, cider vinegar, pickles, butter, and sauerkraut. Hundreds of American potteries made them from the late 18th century into the early 20th century. And many of those factories were gone by around 1920. That means what survived did so by accident through kitchens, cellars, and family moves. Before we start, tell me where you are watching from and whether there is an old jug in your family that nobody can identify. And stay with me to number 4, because that is where regional folk art starts changing the value faster than most people expect. Name's Otis. I have spent 40 years picking barns, estate auctions, farm sales, and cellar cleanouts across the Midwest. And stoneware is one of those categories where one blue brushstroke can change the whole story. And I learned that lesson years ago when a plain cellar jug I nearly ignored turned out to carry a maker stamp beneath the grime. The family had called it worthless for decades, and that little stamp changed everything. Quick favor before we get into the marks. If you like learning how to spot valuable old pieces before they get sold for pocket change, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we break down the makers, dates, decorations, and small details that separate common household wear from pieces collectors chase. And the next one might already be sitting under your stairs. Now, let me be straight with you, because I am not selling a dream. Most old stoneware is not worth a fortune. Plain late jugs can still be modest pieces. The money comes from the combination maker, cobalt decoration, form, condition, and rarity, and no single clue is enough by itself. First, make sure you are holding stoneware at all. Tap it lightly with a knuckle. Good stoneware has a dense body and often gives a clear, almost metallic ring. Under the glaze, the clay body is usually gray, beige, or cream. Then study the glaze, because glaze is one of your best dating tools. Salt glaze dominated much of the 19th century, especially in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Potters threw salt into the kiln at high temperature, and the vapor created a thin, translucent skin with a fine orange peel texture. That texture is not a defect. On genuine 19th century ware, it could be exactly what you want to see. Albany slip is different. It is a rich iron-bearing brown, almost chocolate-colored, used heavily from roughly 1820 to 1900, often on the inside to seal the vessel, and sometimes outside as well. Bristol glaze comes later, roughly 1890 into the 1930s. It is white, smooth, and more uniform. A completely white, slick vessel is generally later and usually less valuable than an earlier decorated salt glaze piece. Then you have the two-tone brown top or shoulder jug, especially common in the Midwest from about 1880 to 1920. The shoulder or upper section is brown from Albany slip, while the lower body is white or beige Bristol. Red Wing, Monmouth, Maycomb, and other Midwestern factories made plenty of them. Finally, alkaline glaze belongs to the Southern tradition, especially Edgefield, South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina, roughly 1810 to 1880. Those surfaces can run brown, olive, or greenish brown from ash and iron. Once you know the glaze, look at the form. Ovoid means rounded, swollen, almost belly-shaped. That is the earlier form, strongest from the late 1700s into roughly the 1830s or 1840s. And collectors usually want it more than the later straight cylindrical form. Cylindrical vessels are more standardized and generally later. Shoulder jugs, especially brown top examples with a narrower mouth and a defined shoulder, belong mainly to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Handles help too. Handle jugs usually bring more than comparable handleless pieces. Miniatures under 6 inches and giants over 16 inches can be especially collectible, and unusual forms such as double spout or figural pieces, jump out because far fewer were made. Now look for blue. Hand-painted cobalt decoration is one of the biggest multipliers in American stoneware. A plain vessel and a decorated vessel from the same maker can live in completely different price worlds. Simple flowers and leaves bring moderate interest. Birds are stronger. The classic cobalt bird jug or crock has a serious following. Deer, other animals, and full scenes climb again. Human figures, ships, patriotic emblems, and Civil War soldiers sit near the top because art and history overlap. Hand-brushed cobalt is generally earlier and more desirable than later stencil work, although merchant stencils can be extremely collectible when the store or town is rare. Next, find the maker. A maker's mark or pottery stamp is usually impressed near the shoulder, and an identified piece often earns a premium over anonymous stoneware. A merchant or advertising stencil may name a whiskey dealer, grocery store, city, and state. Regional collectors love those. On very early ware, you may find an incised signature scratched into the clay by hand. Then look for the gallon mark, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, sometimes scratched into the body, sometimes brushed in cobalt. Larger capacities often bring more, especially when the decoration is strong. If you want a fast-dating timeline, remember this. Late 1700s through the 1820s means ovoid shapes, incised signatures, simple cobalt, strong salt glaze, and little stencil work. The 1830s through the 1860s are the great hand-brushed cobalt years, often with Albany slip inside, impress maker marks, and hand-painted gallon numerals. From the 1870s into the 1890s, merchant advertising and stencils become more common and forms grow standardized. From the 1890s into the 1930s, Bristol white takes over. Factory logos and printed numerals become more common. Stoneware cobra appears in names, and hand-brushed cobalt declines. Keep that timeline in your head while we count down. One habit has saved me. Never judge a jug from the front. I've seen pieces that looked blank until somebody turned them toward a window and found a faint impress name hiding under haze. I've also seen beautiful cobalt on badly cracked ware that looked valuable from 6 feet away and disappointed the moment it was inspected closely. So slow down. Turn the vessel, feel the glaze, read the shoulder, inspect the rim, and follow every clue together. That method matters more than getting excited about one pretty blue mark alone. Number 10 is Red Wing Stoneware from Red Wing, Minnesota, with production becoming especially familiar from the 1870s forward. This is one of the easiest American names for a beginner to recognize. Look for the big Red Wing logo, clean salt glaze on older pieces, and large gallon numerals. A good 2-gallon crocker jug in strong condition often lands around $200 to $400. Earlier double circle marks, older oval stamps, and uncommon markings can push beyond $1,000. Red Wing is a perfect lesson in why the logo and era matter. 2 jugs can both say Red Wing, but the earlier marking may be the one collectors fight over. Number 9 is the 19th century cobalt bird jug from the Northeast. Look for gray salt glaze and a bird painted by hand in cobalt, often perched on a branch or surrounded by leaves. The art is the value multiplier here. A stiff little bird with simple strokes can still be collectible, while a beautifully painted, unusual bird from a desirable maker can climb dramatically. Prices range from a few $100s into several thousand depending on maker, quality, rarity, and condition. If you own one, do not assume all blue decoration is equal. Study how much of it is hand-brushed, how elaborate the scene is, and whether the maker can be identified. Would you have guessed that one bluebird could matter more than the size of the whole jug? Tell me below, because that is exactly the kind of detail families miss. Number 8 is the two-tone brown top shoulder jug, a Midwestern staple from about 1880 to 1920. You know it by the brown Albany slip top, the lighter Bristol body, the defined shoulder, and often a merchant stencil naming a store, whiskey dealer, or town. Plain examples can sell from the tens into the low hundreds. A rare advertising stencil or small town name can pull the price much higher because collectors are not just buying pottery, they're buying local history. Check the shoulder, read every stencil, and never scrub faint lettering until you know what it says. Number 7 is Norton from Bennington, Vermont, including E&L P. Norton and F.B. Norton in the 19th century. Look for the Norton name with the town, then study the cobalt work. Birds and floral designs can be elaborate and beautifully brushed. Norton is one of the most respected and heavily collected American potteries. Decorated pieces commonly reach the high hundreds, and exceptional examples go into the thousands. A 4-gallon bird jug around $665 is the kind of real-world sale that shows the middle of the market, not the ceiling. Check the maker stamp, gallon mark, cobalt quality, glaze, and condition together. Number 6 is Cowden and Wilcox of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, from the mid-19th century. Their cobalt can be bold, thick, and almost muscular compared with more delicate decoration, and some pieces carry faces or other figural imagery. Look for the Cowden and Wilcox name in those heavy cobalt flourishes. Ordinary decorated examples can live in the hundreds, while rare figurals and stronger decoration climb into the thousands. This is where the hierarchy of cobalt really starts to matter. Flower below bird, bird below complex animal or scene, and human figures or patriotic imagery at the top. Before we go farther, remember condition, intact glaze, sharp decoration, a perfect mouth and rim, and a readable mark all help. Chips, hairline cracks, rim loss, old glue, and repairs cut value hard. A crack can turn a dream piece into a study piece overnight. Number 5 is the old ovoid jug with an incise signature from the late 1700s into the 1830s. This is where shape itself becomes a dating clue. Instead of straight cylindrical walls, the body swells outward like a belly and narrows again toward the neck. Look for pronounced salt glaze, simple cobalt decoration, and a name scratched by hand into the clay rather than stamped by a factory machine. Early potters in places such as Connecticut and New York signed pieces this way, and an identified maker can change the value substantially. Simple ovoid jugs can start around $150, while signed, well-decorated examples can reach into the thousands. The reason is straightforward. You are looking at some of the earliest surviving American utilitarian pottery. A cylindrical jug might still be old and collectible, but the earlier ovoid form generally carries more interest. Check the curve of the body, the signature, the glaze, the handle, the rim, and whether the cobalt looks hand-brushed. Number 4 is the whiskey or merchant advertising jug, and this is the one I told you to stay for, because local history can make a plain-looking vessel suddenly matter. Look for a cobalt stencil naming a distillery, grocery, merchant, store, town, and state. The body may be salt-glazed or two-tone, and you will often find a gallon numeral somewhere on it. These were working containers and advertisements at the same time. Collectors of stoneware want them, but so do collectors of whiskey, advertising, and local history. That overlap is why a rare town or business can turn an otherwise ordinary jug into a serious piece. Values run from tens of dollars for common advertising ware to thousands for scarce merchants, unusual regions, and desirable graphics. Read every letter. A faded town name that means nothing to you may be exactly what a regional collector has spent years trying to find. If your basement jug carries the name of a store that once stood in your hometown, would you sell it? Or would that local connection make you keep it? Tell me below. And remember that stencil decoration is generally later than the great hand-brushed cobalt period, but later does not automatically mean cheap. Rarity can overpower age. Number 3 takes us south. Southern face jugs and alkaline glazed stoneware from traditions associated with Edgefield, South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina. The glaze is the first tell. Instead of gray salt glaze or white Bristol, look for brown, olive, or greenish-brown surfaces created through the alkaline tradition of ash and iron, especially from roughly 1810 to 1880. Then there are the face jugs, where the potter modeled a human face directly onto the vessel. These are not just containers. They sit in American folk art. Names matter enormously here. Potters such as Lanier Meters and Berlin Craig became reference names in the Southern face jug tradition, and signed pieces by recognized folk potters can bring hundreds to many thousands of dollars. Check the glaze, the modeled features, the signature if present, and the natural wear. Do not assume every strange face jug is 19th century, because the tradition continued and later folk artists became collectible in their own right. The value comes from maker, period, artistic quality, condition, and provenance together. Number 2 is the political or historical jug, where American stoneware crosses into presidential and event memorabilia. These can carry cobalt text, names, dates, or imagery tied to a president or historic moment. You might see references such as Tyler Lincoln or dates like 1862, sometimes paired with a known pottery mark. That combination is powerful because two groups of collectors now want the same object. Stoneware collectors and historical memorabilia collectors. Pieces with genuine 19th century political content are rare enough that values can run into the thousands, with exceptional examples moving far beyond ordinary decorated ware. Identification has to be careful. Study the cobalt style, maker, glaze, form, lettering, date, and wear as one package. A Civil War soldier, patriotic emblem, ship president, or human figure belongs near the top of the decoration hierarchy because the image carries historical meaning beyond decoration alone. Number one is the category that sits at the absolute summit, elite figural stoneware, especially Anna Pottery of Illinois and its famous temperance jugs. These are the pieces that make somebody who thinks stoneware means a $50 basement crock stop talking. Anna Pottery created unusual modeled forms with complex imagery, including snakes, maps, inscriptions, and social or political messages. They were not simply storage vessels, they were sculptural statements, and surviving examples are among the rarest and most artistic objects in American stoneware. One 1859 Anna Pottery temperance jug sold through Crocker Farm for $252,000. That is a record level example, not the price of a normal old jug, but it proves how high this category can reach. Elite figural pieces can command 5- and 6-figure sums when rarity, artistry, provenance, and condition align. If you ever find a bizarre old jug with molded snakes, map-like decoration, inscriptions, or complicated figural work, do not treat it like ordinary pottery and do not clean it aggressively. Photograph it and get specialist help. Now, let me put all those prices back on solid ground. Values are estimates, and they vary enormously with maker, decoration, form, size, condition, rarity, provenance, and the market at the time. The numbers we have discussed come from real sale and auction territory, but they are not guarantees. One category can contain a $50 piece and a $5,000 piece, while an extreme documented example can reach 6 figures. Never confuse a record with an average, and never confuse somebody's asking price with what buyers actually paid. That brings us to condition, because a rare maker cannot make damage disappear. Intact glaze helps. Sharp, elaborate cobalt helps. A perfect mouth and rim help. A clear maker stamp helps. Chips hurt. Hairline cracks hurt more than many beginners expect. Rim loss hurts because the mouth is one of the first areas collectors inspect. Old repairs, glue, filled chips, and reconstructed sections can cut value. Hold the jug carefully and inspect it against strong light. Look around the handle attachments, shoulder, base, and rim. Tap lightly and listen. Dense sound stoneware often gives a clearer ring. A hidden crack may change that sound, although the ring test should never be your only test. You are looking for evidence, not performing magic. This is also where reproductions and fantasy pieces can cost somebody money. Be suspicious of a vessel that is supposed to be 19th century but looks unnaturally glossy, perfect, and untouched. Check whether the clay body, weight, and color make sense. A piece that feels too light or whose clay looks wrong can be modern. Read advertising carefully. A supposed 19th century whiskey jug with a zip code is wrong before you finish reading it, because zip codes belong to a much later era. Modern-looking fonts, inappropriate abbreviations, or a telephone number that does not fit the claimed period should stop you cold. But again, no single clue is definitive. Cross-check glaze, form, maker's mark, decoration, clay, wear, and construction together, and inspect for disguised cracks or repairs a seller may not mention. Now, here is why I keep telling you never to sell these until you know what you have. Rare and decorated stoneware has a long-established collector market, and scarce pieces can appreciate because nobody is making more 19th century originals. But money is only half the argument. These vessels are American folk art and historical artifacts. A jug that sat in your great-grandparents' cellar may carry family history that a check cannot replace, and the risk of selling cheap is enormous because ordinary-looking pieces still get dumped at rummage sales and cleanouts for $10, while the same broad collecting category has produced a $252,000 auction result. If you want to sell, that is your decision. Just never sell before identifying the manufacturer, decoration, form, age clues, and actual comparable sales. So here's your basement checklist. Start by turning the jug slowly and inspecting every side. Look near the shoulder for a maker's mark or impressed stamp. Find the gallon numeral. Decide whether the glaze is salt glaze, Albany slip, Bristol, two-tone brown top, or Southern alkaline. Decide whether the form is ovoid, cylindrical, shoulder style, miniature, giant, handled, double spout, or figural. Study every piece of cobalt. Is it a simple flower, a bird, an animal, a scene, a human figure, a ship, a patriotic emblem, or a merchant stencil? Photograph all sides before you do anything else. Photograph the base, rim, handle, maker mark, gallon mark, decoration, and any damage in close-up. Then perform a gentle ring test and use strong light to search for hairlines, chips, rim loss, repairs, and glued areas. Do not hide flaws from yourself just because you want the jug to be valuable. Once you have those notes, check real market evidence. On eBay, use completed sales and the sole filter, not active listings where somebody can ask any price they want. Match the maker, capacity, form, decoration, and condition as possible. If the object looks valuable, unusual, political, early, strongly figural, or tied to a major maker, move beyond casual online comparisons. Contact a specialist auction house or appraiser. Crocker Farm is the kind of specialized stoneware auction reference worth knowing, and professional appraisal should come before any irreversible decision on a serious piece. There are other makers worth learning as you go, too. White's Utica of New York, Hamilton & Jones, West Troy Pottery, Wool Pottery of Indiana, Monmouth and Western Stoneware of Illinois, Robinson Ransbottom of Ohio, Star Stoneware of Crooksville, Ohio, and E. Swayze and Company of Portland, Maine. They are reminders that the 10 categories today are not the whole hobby. Hundreds of potteries operated and regional names matter. It comes back to the same thing every time. Value hides in plain sight, not in a museum case, but beside the furnace, behind canned goods, under a workbench, in a barn, or in the box nobody opened after Grandma's house was cleaned out. So tonight, go find that jug. Turn it around carefully. Read the shoulder, read the town, read the gallon mark, feel the glaze, look at the form, study the cobalt. Check the rim and handle. Take photographs before you clean anything. Then come back and tell me exactly what you found, including the maker, gallon size, glaze color, and decoration. Which of these 10 would you most want to discover in your own basement? The bird jug, a southern face jug, a political piece, or an Anna Pottery figural? I read the comments, and one of those forgotten family pieces may be far more interesting than anybody in the house ever guessed.